Hello and welcome to another edition of the Sofa Sports News Football Show, brought to you by the FNX Network. I'm joined this evening by SofaSportsNews.com's very own Dan DeLuca.
Hello.
How's it going, Dan?
Yeah, not bad at all.
Good, good. And of course, the one and only Simon Alavi. How you doing, mate?
Good, mate. Enjoying a whiskey. Looks like you need one as well. You look shattered.
I must admit, I am tired. I've been getting my Greek on. Just finished an interview with Greece's Euro 2004 winning goalkeeper, Andonis Nigovolidis. So that will be available on our channel in the next couple of days. So stay tuned for that one. We are recording using the glorious tool that is Google Hangouts. And so I'd like to apologize to our listeners in advance for any sound issues that may occur. And there are certain members of this panel that are notorious for having Wi-Fi troubles. So just so you're aware.
Not guilty. Not guilty.
Guilty as charged. We begin with what was a mouth-watering Super Sunday. Spurs versus Palace, City versus Arsenal, and Chelsea versus Manchester United. But perhaps unexpectedly, the game of the day took place at Goodison Park between Everton and Watford. It ended 3-2 to the Toffees, with them coming from behind. Alavi, you watched this one for us. Great advert for Premier League football.
Yeah, it's what we've always said. Yeah, the mute button. Yeah, it's what we've always said. I don't see other leagues being able to serve up such a brilliant game. Now, it's one of those games where when you look at all the stats, Watford had everything in their favour, and I mean everything. But at the end of the day, they didn't get the points. Silva obviously be gutted. Don't know what you guys thought of the penalties. I mean, the Cleverley one was obvious, but actually, for once, I didn't feel that Everton deserved a penalty. I think, he accidentally fell. So if you accidentally fall and take someone out, your intention isn't to actually foul them, is it? I think the real turning point was probably the injury to Gomez. Harry, you'll know the Greek keeper that came on a bit better than me and probably better at pronouncing his name as well.
Yeah, he's not a great goalkeeper, to be honest.
No. Well, I think I've got it. Canizes?
Yeah, Orestes Karnezis. Yeah, that's the one.
And I think what the issue was is he was at fault for the goal, and the Niesa goal when he runs through, completely at fault. And I think that spoils your confidence. And when you're not experienced, one small error like that, your confidence is gone. He needs to be coming out and claiming that cross for the Calvert-Lewin goal as well. So he's made an error. He's had his confidence shot, and then that stopped him coming out and obviously trying to get the ball for Everton's second goal. The third goal I've talked about, which is the penalty. So interested to hear what you guys' thoughts are on that game as well. But for me, that is what I think the Premier League has over any of the other leagues. Not quality at all, no way. But games like that, unbelievable.
Entertainment value, I suppose.
Yeah, I think there's something that it's just fashionable to praise the Premier League for excitement, though, because like in Serie A this week, Roma won 4-2. That was an exciting game. A couple of weeks ago in Spain, there was a big 3-3 draw that was unexpected between, I think it was Sociedad and Betis. So there are games abroad that seem to slip under the radar because obviously we don't watch Match of the Day in every other country. But there's something about the Premier League where the fans sit close to the pitch. I think it makes a difference. And obviously the stadiums are generally more fuller, and I think that all helps. But goalkeeper-wise, I think as a goalkeeper, Alavi, like you can't ever really know when you're going to play, and that's got to have some kind of impact. You see it happen a lot when goalies come off the bench and they're instantly finding themselves in trouble, or they'll flap their first cross. I don't think you can ever really prepare for that situation as a sub-goalkeeper, not having any idea, and then suddenly you're thrust into the limelight away from home at a cauldron like Goodison. The Spurs game, which I'm sure we'll come on to, Gazzaniga made an unexpected debut. And the first thing he's done 2 minutes in was completely flap it across. And I thought, here we go. Like, this is going to be a long 90 minutes. And then actually, he made another mistake in the game he got away with. And then he started to look assured. But I think it's got to be the only position where the manager says, yeah, strip off. And you're just like, oh, shit, I've got to go and play football now.
Yeah. And you know what, as well, being a goalkeeper, the stakes are so high. If you make a mistake, it usually leads to a goal. If you make a mistake further up the field, then the likelihood is your teammates are going to get you out of trouble.
Yeah, no one's going to save you. That's it. It's all over.
Did you guys think it was a penalty, the Leighton Baines one?
To be honest, there's no point asking me. Like, if I was a ref, I wouldn't even paint the penalty spots. I just wouldn't give penalties.
But it's a good bit of a grey area, is it? Because it's like the whole accidental handball thing. I mean, if you fall over and in falling over you take out a player, what does that mean?
I rewrite the rules of football when it comes to penalty boxes. To me, I have an imaginary penalty box, which is like triangular in shape. And if Aaron Lennon was running in that triangle in the direction of the goal, then I'd be inclined to give it. But because he's running down a channel that's not directly at the goal, I'll wave it away. And
what are you saying, Harry?
I'm on the fence. To use the Lucas phrase, I've got splinters. The managerial situation at Everton continues to drag on, and it was interesting this week to see Atletico Madrid manager Diego Simeone linked with the job. Is he actually a realistic target? Is Everton a big enough job to tempt him to the Premier League? Sam Allardyce is in the mix, apparently. Or should David Unsworth be given a crack at it? DeLuca?
No, I think Everton, they disappointed in the summer. Farhad, I'm going to sound like Alavi now, my pronunciations. Farhad Morisi. There was all the talks of big cash. How are you saying his guy's name?
You know what? That's the one I can say for obvious reasons. Moshiri,
very good. Yeah. Moshiri. So, there was talks of Everton having all this money, and every new chairman says it. We're going to be in the Champions League in 5 years. Okay, great. What are you going to do about it? They didn't spend any more money than what they recouped. And I think if they were serious, they would have bought 2 players instead of 7 players, and they would have put big wages on the table. They didn't really do that. So I'm not convinced. I think Simeone will hold out for a bigger offer. I think he'll get that. I think Liverpool, Arsenal, and Chelsea will be changing their managers in the next 2 years. Some of the Italian clubs are starting to return close to where they were before. He's obviously played in Italy, so I don't think he'll be going to Everton. I don't think they can attract him.
Do you know what? Apart from the Panorama thing, which we'll park and I'm sure we'll discuss a bit later, I think Everton have got another issue that no one's really touched on. They want to bring in sort of Sean Dyche, and I think he'll be a half-decent appointment for anyone. But obviously, an ideal coach is someone who's sort of like young, idealistic, dynamically, optimistic, flexible, someone who's going to play great football, pass their opponents off the pitch, etc. Now, neither Allardyce or Dyche, for example, fit that bill, right? Because, you wouldn't really want them if you're trying to compete for a Premier League top 4, top 6 in the next few years. So Everton's problem is the manager they want, ideally, a manager who's going to play that great football, take them to the next level, is not the manager that they need right now, because the manager they need right now is someone who is probably an Allardyce or a Dyche, who's going to get them out of the relegation. And that's what West Ham have as well, just maybe on a slightly lower scale. So why do you think David Moyes has just been given a few months? It's because they're in relegation trouble, so to speak. David Moyes takes them to the end of the season, and then they get a flair type manager who can actually then take them to the next level. And that's what people don't see. That's why you can't just have it as simple as, we'll get Allardyce and Dyche, because they're not long term. But at the same time, you don't go and get let's just say they could break the bank and get a Carlo Ancelotti. Is he the man who's got to be bothered by to take you to a relegation battle? Maybe he's a bad example, but do you see what I mean? And it's fine when you're a lower league club trying to, when Crystal Palace bringing a manager to take them out the top into the top half of the table to escape relegation. That's one thing. It's another when you're a club like Everton or West Ham and you should be top 8, top 9. Do you see what I'm saying? And I think it's important.
I think we're doing Dyche a little bit of a disservice there. I think Dyche has got a little bit more about him. I know he's gone down twice, but when he's come up, he has played good football, and I think he's tried at times in the Premier League to play good football as well. I think he's got the ability to adjust Dyche, so I think it's a bit harsh there. I'd like to see Allardyce at a big club to see what he does. I mean, the ideal sort of person was what Newcastle did with Benitez. All right, he didn't keep him up and managed to keep him for the next season, but you've got someone who can adjust his style depending on where they are. But we're talking about a negative type of manager and a style of football. both West Ham and Everton are associated with playing good football. And obviously the managers you pointed out for the purpose that they need now, which is to get out of a dogfight pretty quickly.
Do you guys...
But then you wouldn't associate Simeone with playing great football, really.
No, you wouldn't, but you'd associate Simeone with getting big results in big games like he has done in the Champions League. For me, yeah, and Dan, you just mentioned there that, you know, Everton and West Ham are associated with playing good football. And to an extent, I agree with you. But what I think is one of the major problems here, and I've said this in the past about certain clubs, is that their expectations are too high. And they believe they should be a lot further down the line than they actually are. And this is what happens. You know, Everton went into this season expecting to be challenging for a European spot. I'm not saying they were going to make the top 4, but people felt they could get close at least to the top 6. And they've disappointed. And now it's time to adjust your objectives, because we're a quarter of the way through the season, just over, and they're nowhere near where they need to be. So maybe I take what Alavi's saying on board, but maybe they need to adjust their objectives and look at achieving the bare minimum at the moment, which is getting out of trouble. And then further down the line, you can look at, you know, upgrading and perhaps going for someone who's got a bit more tactical nous about them. Alavi, you mentioned about the BBC Panorama story, and that broke this week. It's alleged that Farhad Moshiri was gifted funds by Arsenal shareholder Alisher Usmanov, which enabled him to purchase his stake in the Merseyside club. From one dodgy Iranian to another, what did you make of that?
Yeah, so obviously it's close to your heart as well, because it's from Mr. Usmanov, isn't it? So the whole idea is that the leaks have came out that, you know, this was a gift, and it raises the questions as to who actually owns Everton. Because the rule is, it's the 10% rule, isn't it? So an individual who owns a stake of 10% or more in one club can't hold a single share in another, to avoid, you know, obviously any conflicts of interest, possibly in games between the clubs, transfers between the clubs, etc. Now, I guess we'll find out. It's called the something papers. I've completely forgotten.
Paradise Papers.
Sorry, Paradise Papers, and we'll see about it in the Panorama programme. Obviously, it's not going to affect Arsenal, but I guess, does it start to affect the whole managerial appointment? Is that why we haven't, heard anything? Is there going to be some sort of fine, because we've seen before at clubs where something happens higher up in the board and it filters down. So is that why they're holding off announcing anyone? He's strongly denying it, and obviously I'm massively on his side, because people from our culture don't do anything wrong like that. So
of course,
never in the news for anything but selling very nice carpets. So I think we'll find. Do you know what I'm really interested to see the program and the Alan Shearer dementia program. Actually, there's a couple of good sort of half decent football documentary programs coming out. Harry, how dodgy is Usmanov? Is that a question Because obviously he's involved in this massively as well.
Usmanov has always been a character who's kept himself to himself, and we don't really know too much about him as Arsenal supporters. And you know what? It does irritate me when I hear Arsenal supporters jumping to his defence and insisting that he should take full control of the club because he said a few of the right things in the press. The fact is, we don't know anything about this man. Other than that, he's stinking rich. He's got plenty of money behind him, plenty of power, it seems. I actually saw the BBC Panorama programme, and they referred to the fact that the company that actually brokered the deal where Moshiri acquired his stake is owned by Usmanov, and that's out in the Isle of Man. Usmanov's got a lot of power. I knew in the past that Farhad Moshiri was involved with Usmanov, how they broke away from each other and how this whole thing actually came to light and how it was done, and whether Panorama are actually onto something or whether it's just a wild goose chase remains to be seen. But yeah, with Usmanov, it's a tough one, because even as Arsenal fans and as someone who follows the club so closely, we don't actually know what this man is all about. You know, he says the right things in the press now and again, but that's about it.
The whole thing's weird for me. Like, what is this rule? I've heard about it, but to me, it's just another myth, like financial fair play, because it happens all the time. You read this one shouldn't have. You're not allowed stake. It's in other clubs because of that, but then you look at Manchester City. Their owners own like 5 clubs all over the world. Joe Lewis, who owns Tottenham, had stakes in other clubs at some point. I think he still does. You look at RB Leipzig, Leipzig in Germany. They own other clubs. You had Watford. You had the Pozzo family, who basically turned Watford into a Serie A side when they were in the Championship and got them promoted. So I'm not sure how much this rule. There's obviously loopholes around the rule, even if it does exist. So in terms of a fine, I'm sure that's not going to come to fruition. I think Everton they're at that place where they're in limbo between objectives. Are they in a relegation fight? But really, they're the 7th best club in England, and they want to be breaking into the top 6 or 5 or whatever. There's no one really available who is obtainable easily. You'll find that probably the delay is trying to reach a settlement, whether it's with Burnley for Dyche or whatever they want, and trying to buy that manager out of a contract, because on the table, you've got Ancelotti. He's not going there, so forget that. Are they going to buy Simeone out of his contract at Atletico Madrid right now? Of course they're not. So if Usmanov is lending money to someone to make these deals happen, he's going to have to lend them a lot more and pretty quickly. But I don't know. I don't buy it, to be honest.
Yeah. Just interestingly as well, I was at Roy Hodgson's press conference at Crystal Palace's training ground last Friday. And it was interesting to hear some of the journalists that actually work for Crystal Palace. They believe that Sam Allardyce, who's another one that Everton have been linked with, actually signed something when he left Palace to say that he wouldn't take a job for 2 years. He wouldn't take another Premier League job for at least 2 years. And that if he does come out of this, you know, and I say it with inverted commas, retirement, he would need to pay a £2 million settlement to Crystal Palace's chairman. So
maybe that's the delay, because if that's going to happen, then Everton are going to have to pay that, aren't they? Everton will have to give Allardyce that $2 million somehow. But I don't know. I don't know who I'd go for if I was Everton. They're in a difficult sort of place. I'd like Allardyce to get it. I think he deserves, over the course of a career, to have the reins at a slightly bigger club. And if he keeps him up, I'd expect him to then show another side to his game. And if he doesn't, we'll know just before he retires that everything we said about him was true. And that's good enough for me.
That's true. But a part of me admires Everton for not rushing and jumping into something that's wrong. You know, a part of me admires them for that. And I think they are doing the right thing if they are searching as we're led to believe.
Was it a 2-part series? I need to see it. Was it a 2-part?
Yeah, it's 2 parts. Yeah. One's half an hour, one's an hour. It's on the BBC iPlayer. So do check it out. Let's move on. Manchester City continued their excellent run with a 3-1 victory over the Gunners. That was Pep Guardiola's side's 10th league win from 11. And they now sit pretty at the top of the division with an 8-point lead. Before we look at what this result means for the rest of the Premier League, there were a couple of incidents during the game that sparked some controversy. The first one being the penalty awarded to Raheem Sterling. Arsene Wenger was quick to accuse the City forward of diving. But DeLuca, was that actually the case?
Yeah, I'm going to be consistent with this, right? Where if a player throws himself to the floor in an unnatural way, that's a dive. So, yeah, a foul has taken place. It's not the worst foul I've ever seen. It's a foul, technically. But if he's thrown himself down to the floor, he's made a meal out of it. Now, with Sterling, there's a bit of previous, isn't there, in both cases? I've seen him stay up against Tottenham and not get given a penalty. So it's that old debate again. Do you have to go down to get the decision you deserve? That one. But, you know, a foul's been committed. I wouldn't, because I don't give penalties. But overall, I think you've got to take that one on the chin, I think.
DeLuca, that is a penalty. Come on, like honestly, forget like whether you give penalties normally or not. That is a penalty.
I mean,
let's be honest.
If it's against Arsenal, it's a penalty, isn't it?
No, come on. That is a penalty. Even Harry didn't even flinch. That is a penalty. I don't think there's just.
I would have pointed to the spot.
There's no argument.
For me, it was a penalty. There's no debate about that one.
So, Luca, you're a Premier League referee. You're being paid all that money. By the rules, you've got a point to the spot there.
Well,
Luca would be a bottle job of a referee because he just avoids making any decisions whatsoever.
Oh, I'd make the decisions. Don't worry about that. I'd get to your feet.
You wouldn't need the whistle.
Get to your feet.
You've got to give a penalty if you're by the rules and you're a ref, because there's no other circumstance. It's not like he's got the ball first, or it's accidental, or the ref can't see that it's a penalty.
I think Arsene Wenger's comments were made after the game very rashly, and I think having looked at it again and thought about it some more, he might make some different comments.
Yeah, but Deluca, I just want you to admit that it's a penalty.
Yes, it was a penalty.
Right, all right. Let's move on.
Leave him alone. I don't tolerate bullying on the Sofa Sports.
You want me to abandon my very beliefs?
Right? No, I don't understand why the Arsenal fan is sitting there going, yeah, it's definitely a penalty. And I've got to convince a Spurs fan that Arsenal should be given a penalty against them. The world's gone mad.
Yeah.
Look, we're live. I've got to maintain my image. It's very important.
That's it. The FA have since released a statement clarifying the fact that they will not be looking to punish Arsene Wenger for those Sterling comments. Is that the right decision, Alavi?
Well, yeah, I don't think you should bother punishing someone, but I think you got your knickers in a twist about Deeney's comments. But when Wenger goes out and calls someone a cheat who hasn't cheated, it seems to be okay. I mean, you can sue in papers for defamation of character, can't you? So I don't think there should be a fine, but I think he has got a... Considering he bid for Sterling, apparently, I do think it will be for someone who I respect, like Wenger, I do think it will be the noble thing to come out and sort of say that I've made a mistake there. No?
I'm just surprised he saw the incident, to be honest. I think
he usually doesn't see him, does he?
I mean, Harry, are you not embarrassed as an Arsenal fan that he's not come out and said, look, come on, I was wrong there?
I'm not embarrassed by it. To be honest, I don't really care. My manager is defending my team, and I don't really care. It doesn't bother me. I think so much is made of it, and I think managers walk into those interviews straight out of a game in the heat of the moment, and they're gonna say stuff. Like, I just think, what would we be talking about now if Wenger didn't say that? So I don't think it's a huge problem. It is a bit disrespectful. If I was a Man City fan,
that is the problem. You've just touched the problem that I tell you about all the time. Do you know what we'd be talking about if Arsene Wenger didn't make them comments? We'd be talking about Arsenal's terrible defensive display. And that is what Wenger does. That was my next
comment. That was my next comment. Look, of course, Wenger's going to point to the decisions and stuff like that. But the third goal, come on, there were some serious questions about the legality of that. It was clearly offside. Awful decision, come at a great time for Manchester City. Now, I'm not saying Arsenal were definitely going to equalise, but you have to acknowledge that the momentum was with them, having just pulled the goal back. And given the fact that City had played midweek, whereas Wenger's side had all been rested, surely the boss has a right to feel aggrieved about that one. Alavi?
Who are you asking? Yeah, look, offside is something that I think you can have a yes or no and technology come in for. Do you know what? At the time, I thought it was quite difficult to call. It's one of those that when you see it again, it is offside. Pep did say something in his interview after that made me chuckle, because he said, they were okay scoring last-minute handball goals. So I know you don't think it evens out, but someone like Pep, who's normally quite level-headed, look, it's not the first time you've lost to Man City unfairly through an offside. I do also think if you're going to be giving the ball away, twice in the lead up to the first goal, you're going to let Aguero have a chance within a minute and a half of the game. I'll just be very wary of blaming the whole thing on an offside goal. But yeah, I'm not denying it was offside. I'm not,
Okay.
A spade is a spade,
DeLuca, we've established that Wenger may have made those comments, may have exaggerated these comments even to cover up for his team's deficiencies. His team selection came under quite a bit of scrutiny. He started Francis Coquelin and he left Alex Lacazette on the bench. What did you make of his selection? Is the manager at fault here? I know I've got my opinion on it, but I'm interested to hear what a non-Arsenal fan, I was going to say neutral, but you're not. So a non-Arsenal fan has to say on that.
Like, I'll be neutral, right? I don't like Arsene Wenger as a manager anymore. I don't like him as someone who gives interviews, and I don't like what comes out of his mouth. I do think on this week, I think the criticism of Wenger, I think he's very, very harsh. He's very harsh. He's in a place where 9 times out of 10 he deserves what he gets, but this time he's gone away to Manchester City. Arsenal haven't put in the worst performance I've ever seen. They've been beaten, and there's been a couple of unfortunate incidents along the way. Look, he goes there, he plays football, he gets beat. Yeah? So he's tried to do something different, and it's backfired. I think as a football manager, you've got to be given the right to do that in a game that you're expected to lose anyway. It's easy to say, people will look at the team sheet and say, what, Lacazette's not playing? If Arsenal got themselves a 2-2 draw, 1-1 draw, it'd have been the most genius move in the world. There's got to be some middle ground. I think he's obviously put Coquelin into, he's your most combative central midfielder. Makes sense for him to play. Would I have sacrificed Lacazette? I probably wouldn't. You know what I'm going to say. I wouldn't have bothered playing Ozil away at Eastlands, just because past history shows in a big game against a powerful midfield, he's probably not the best weapon. And a couple of games ago, he was effective off the bench. I might have done that, but by the same token, he's probably looking that if he gets a chance, a free kick, good delivery, he's the best guy to have in midfield. So I think you've got to allow Arsene Wenger to manage that game the way he sees fit.
Yeah.
And he's lost. So I think this week it's a bit harsh on Le Professeur. But next week, when he loses to Tottenham, it'll be all his fault. But this week, I think it's a bit of an over-exaggeration. And I understand what he tried to do. It just didn't work out.
Yeah, I share the same opinion. I understand what he tried to do. It was interesting to hear after that Per Mertesacker was ill. So obviously his options were limited in that central defensive area. The only criticism I would have was I don't know if Coquelin actually knew whether he was playing as a third centre-half or as a defensive midfielder, because he seemed to get caught in that awkward space in between a few times during the game. Look, the Alex Lacazette thing, I just don't understand why you spend £50 million on a striker if you don't feel he can offer you something in the biggest games. That's my only thing, and it's not the first time he's done this. He left him out at Liverpool as well. But you know what? To be fair, and I know when he gets a chance, he normally takes it, but Alex Lacazette is pretty ineffective as well for large periods of the games that he plays. And yeah, a chance falls to him, he pops up and he scores. And that's great, but there were also long periods where he's a bit of a passenger, and I think perhaps that was what Wenger was thinking, and maybe that's why he felt.
I thought, Harry, it was because he wanted to try and outpress them, which is obviously better without Lacazette.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. He can be a bit of a passenger, and he probably opted for hard work, and I think that was the reasoning behind this. But
if you're going to try and outpress City, every single one of your players has got to be doing it and all on the same page. And I just don't think it's worth even trying to do it against City, to be honest.
Yeah. The last game on Super Sunday was the fixture between Chelsea and Manchester United. Alvaro Morata's header proved to be the difference. But having gone a goal behind, Man United looked worryingly short of attacking ideas. Many, including myself, tipped them to win the title before a ball was kicked. But their recent form has been a cause for concern. Alavi, what's gone wrong at Manchester United?
Well, obviously I picked City, so just so you know, just so you remember that I've obviously got it right already, and De Luca went for Chelsea. What's gone wrong? I think it's the same thing that with the weaknesses of the top six are quite obvious, and United's are quite simply their chance conversion. It was a bit odd because you'd expect Mourinho to maybe really go defensive, and he didn't, and he's ended up not getting the win or a draw. So, does it prove Mourinho's right to go defensive from the start? I think maybe you're doing a disservice to Chelsea because they played really well, and they tend to play very well against Manchester United at Stamford Bridge, and simply with Kante, they're a better side because they're a much better side because he does the job of Fabregas and Bakayoko in one. You know, Fabregas can distribute the ball, but he can't win it. Bakayoko can get the ball, but he can't redistribute it. Kante can do both, and having him in the side makes a difference. So,
yeah, but surely the level of distribution that Kante can offer and that Cesc Fabregas can offer are two completely different levels.
The point is that without Kante, you have to play Fabregas further back, and you give him defensive duties, and I just don't think he's good enough when he plays that deep. He was at Arsenal when he was a bit younger, but not for me now. And for Manchester United, going back to your original question, it's just that they just can't seem to convert the chances when they do get them. Obviously, the Lukaku jokes have been going around the internet. I don't know. Maybe I got the City thing right, and maybe I got the Lukaku thing wrong, and you were right, and he's going to turn out not to be the great signing I thought he would be.
DeLuca, how much are Manchester United missing Paul Pogba at the moment?
Yeah, they are, because they've lost their box to box. They've lost their box to box man, which having that player in the team is absolutely massive. We've seen it in previous seasons. And they just seem to get it working, where they had, Matic doing a lot more of the defensive work that releases shackles off him. Some of their attacking midfield players aren't quite doing the job. Mkhitaryan, who's a player I quite liked, Stell always criticises him, and I couldn't quite see it. And now I've been watching him, I have to say he's got a point, to be honest.
No, not another person admitting Stell's right. We're never going to hear you.
But, he is right. I quite enjoyed watching Mkhitaryan last season, but this season he flips in and out of games. He's not creating enough. Lukaku is Lukaku. He's no different to last season or the season before. He will score 20 to 25 goals. But even for Everton, he scores goals in batches, and then he disappears for 4 or 5 weeks at a time. And I think that's the type of player he is. He's a big, bundly, powerful man, and he has days where he's unplayable. Then he has other days where it doesn't happen. But he relies a lot on service. Back to Mourinho's tactics in the game. Do you know what? I think his tactics were okay. I'd have expected him to attack a Chelsea side a little bit more, who defensively have not been what they've been, not been at the standard they've been at maybe for the beginning of the season. The last season they were solid at the back. This season they've not been there. So I think he was right to attack them. I think it's one of those games where, the home advantage, the home side just shaded it. But what's gone wrong for United, which was your question, I think they've actually started to play some teams who are decent. And it's obviously tougher opposition, and there's an element of them getting found out. I still think they'll finish in the top 3 quite comfortably. I've got no problems with that. But the easy, casual wins that they were rolling into in the first 3-4 games of the season against the likes of, Swansea, for example. Who else did they beat 4-0? They beat Everton 4-0. We were in a really bad place. They've sacked their manager. West Ham 4-0. They've sacked their manager. They got a decent win against Tottenham. They played well. And they got a decent point against Liverpool. But they're starting to play tough teams in a row. Yeah, I think that takes its toll.
Yep, of course. Just quickly before we move on from Manchester United, just quick answer from each of you. Alavi, were United fortunate to end the game with 11 players on the pitch?
Yeah. I think it was. I wouldn't say there was any particular awful challenge, but I think it was the accumulation of. Sorry, yeah. The accumulation of those challenges. But like DeLuca says, it's you have to referee a game at least within the consistency of the game itself. If the referees can't seem to be able to do it within the actual season,
yeah.
So I guess he didn't send anyone off, and therefore he refereed it consistently within the game, and that goes for a couple of the Chelsea tackles as well. By the way, but they were fortunate, yeah.
DeLuca, just quickly, should the own goal by Phil Jones have stood?
Oh yeah. Sorry, yes, for me. Sorry, DeLuca, but yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think he should have. It's quite funny.
Yeah. It's interesting. I just like to point out decisions that go for other teams, because Alavi's always getting onto my team, Arsenal, and pointing those out. So I felt it was only right to do so. Interestingly, for Chelsea, David Luiz was left out of the matchday squad by Antonio Conte. Has the Italian boss fallen out with another star? What do we think's gone in there? Gone on there. De Luca.
I think David Luiz has been playing badly. If he's been playing badly because he's fallen out with a manager, that's not good enough from a professional footballer. I know it happens, particularly at Chelsea. They've got a lot of previous in that department. Yeah. But he's been playing badly. Conte is under extreme pressure. Every time he loses a game, he's about to get sacked. He's going up against Man United. He's picked his best 11 on the day, and that doesn't involve David Luiz, unfortunately. I think
Christensen played well there, didn't he, to be fair?
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is we're not going to buy it that it was a tactical decision, are we?
No, we aren't. We aren't, Harry, but I've heard every single reason in the last 2 days as to why it was so. I've heard that it's because he stuck up for Diego Costa. I've heard that it was because he fell asleep during a team talk. I've heard that it was because he had an argument after Roma. I've heard that it was because of his reaction.
It's an easy story to write. It's an easy story to write for a journalist.
It is. And do you know what? The best point I heard, and this is something that De Luca will know more than us two, I guess, was by Graham Souness at the weekend, who's becoming increasingly good as a pundit. And he said, you got to remember that Conte is from an Italian background, an Italian manager, and in Serie A, a manager makes the final calls and everyone respects the coach. And it's like almost being a teacher. You don't get the chairman telling you this, that. You don't get player power, like they used to group in the change rooms in Chelsea and get the manager out when they wanted to, when they did with Mourinho. And according to Souness, he's just done what he would be doing if he was in Italy as part of Italy culture. And I thought that was a really, really good point. I was going to nick it as one of my own, but it's someone who is brave enough to plant Turkish flags in Galatasaray and Fenerbahce and what have you. I'm not going to steal their point live on air. Is that right, De Luca? Is that
you'd be a brave man to stab Graham Souness in any case? I think. With regards to the falling asleep comment, he probably fell asleep whilst defending a corner. I think that's probably what the biggest issue is. When a player falls out with a manager, the thing I always ask myself is, why has the falling out occurred? Have you fallen out with a manager because you've been dropped and you don't like it? In which case, that's poor. You're a professional footballer. Accept it. Or have you been dropped because you've fallen out with a manager, which seems to be more accepted? But there's been plenty of cases in the past where managers have picked players because of their name. I don't think David Luiz falls into that bracket. He's not been playing well, and I think that is the bottom line.
Okay, interesting. Chelsea do insist that this is not a repeat of the Diego Costa incident, but that remains to be seen. Dan, Spurs laboured to a 1-0 victory over Roy Hodgson's Crystal Palace at Wembley. Palace will feel unlucky not to have taken something from the game. Spurs only had one more attempt at goal than the Eagles, despite having a lion's share of possession, 68% to be specific. I've read plenty of damning reports on Spurs' performance, but the fact they were able to grind out a result surely shows a sign of progression, does it not?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to go as far as Pep Guardiola when he says this was the happiest day of my life. But that was a really, really good win. I said to a friend of mine going into Wembley last Wednesday, I said to him, I guarantee you these two things, right? We're going to beat Real Madrid in a minute and we're going to lose to Crystal Palace on Sunday. And he laughed and said, yeah, because that's what Tottenham do. Maybe not Real Madrid, but we'll have a good result and then we'll split to the next. Think of the worst possible scenario. A 12 o'clock kickoff. Awful situation against a side.
Experienced one a few weeks back is horrible.
They're awful. It's the worst kickoff time against a side like Crystal Palace, who are going to be frustrating to break down, and they haven't got anything to lose. Throw in Wembley, a nice day out for like Crystal Palace. That's a bad thing. On the back of a big European night, we've had a big result, and everyone's on a high. It's the worst possible scenario. I'm annoyed because I told everyone it'd be 1-0 to Tottenham and then put 2-0 in the Predictor League. So that's upset me. But I thought it was a really, really good result. The performance was nothing special. Crystal Palace deserved something from the game. I felt a little bit sorry for them because, when you're down the bottom, a few things don't go your way. And obviously they missed their open goal. which would have put him in the lead. And Gazzaniga got man of the match, didn't he? You know, he's one man of the match for a couple of saves. He's made a mistake that could have cost us a goal. He'd have been a calamity, and he'd have been, you know, never want to see him in a Spurs shirt again. That's the fine lines.
Yeah,
very fine lines.
I thought Aurier was man of the match. I thought he was brilliant.
I don't think anyone.
Him and Son, I thought.
I thought Son had an awful game.
No,
I thought Son had an awful game.
But it was he's just so lively. Like you're so wary of him that. And you look at that winner as well.
Oh, it was a great goal, but a great finish, and he's done more for Spurs than I think we ever expected he would when he signed. But I didn't think he supported. Harry Kane was obviously struggling for fitness. He didn't do enough to support. He didn't bridge the gap between the midfield and Kane in the attacking midfield role. He was very sloppy with his passes, and then he was terrible in front of goal in the last 10 minutes. That was really, really frustrating. He didn't have his best game in a Spurs shirt for me.
So it's funny what a Spurs fan sees that watches 90 minutes, and then I was like half sort of paying attention, and it's just so funny how you see like different. I'll take your word for it, obviously, but you know, I thought like Vertonghen, Aurier, and Son were the best players.
Well, I thought Vertonghen was superb, and Vertonghen's having a very, very good season. But I mean, overall, you weigh up everything to get a 1-0 win out of that game. Really pleased with that. They're the sort of games that historically Tottenham and other teams have dropped points in.
It's unfair on Harry's mate Roy, to be honest.
Listen, Roy Hodgson is actually a really, really nice guy. Spent loads of time after the press conference ended chatting to us all, and he's got
your question was quite good, to be fair.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of talk around his England days, and everybody kept going back to the point that he'd managed at Wembley, and he knew so much about, you know, the Canes, the Alleys, and the Roses, and whatnot. And I just asked him, you know, do you feel that the European Championship came maybe 1 year too early, given how those players have developed? He wouldn't give me a straight answer, as most managers do, but you know, he dodged the question like a true politician.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, when you go to these things, Harry, does it, because obviously we don't see the whole thing, does it make you realise just how good a speaker some of the experienced guys are? You know, it's like when you play with the best player, you know, in your, I don't know, your university team or your county team, and you think, oh, wow, like, you know, you really are levels above everyone here. And that's what I was going to ask you, like, is the levels just obvious?
Yeah, I think to be a Premier League manager this day and age, you need to be almost a politician. The way they speak, the way he had an answer for everything. And it's funny. It's like you ask them a question and they go around the houses and back to the beginning, but they don't actually give you what you want to hear.
I think that's quite sad in a way. I think that's quite sad. They've sort of created this for themselves. Like,
yeah, but I think that's a consequence of people taking stuff too literally. You know, I think often you'll watch a press conference, you'll read a headline. You know, Roy Hodgson says. So someone could have made the headline saying Roy Hodgson says Kane isn't one of the best 5 strikers in the world, because he was asked that question: is Kane the best striker in the world? And Hodgson's response was, it's very difficult to compare different types of players playing in different leagues, different competitions, different teams. And it was a really sensible answer.
Yeah,
you know, he said Kane is not Messi, Messi's not Ronaldo, Ronaldo's not Higuain. But I read something about an hour after I come out of there saying that Roy Hodgson refused to admit that Kane was in the top 5 strikers in the world. And it's just the way they take your comments.
Yeah, we know what journalists are, but
But he answered Harry's question without answering the question, but you went away after going, oh, he's answered Harry's question really well there. Like, it was just ridiculous listening to it. Like.
That's exactly it.
Like, this is why I didn't mind Roy Keane, not as a manager, because tactically and his results were awful, it didn't work out. But you'd ask him a question in a press conference, like, I don't know, David Beckham's 100th game today, and he just looked deadpan and say, I don't care. Yeah. And that I'm up for that. And that's, to some degree, that's why I don't mind Jurgen Klopp either. But I can answer the question Harry asked on behalf of Roy Hodgson if you want. No, he didn't come a year too early. Not at all. I remember the 2014 World Cup. it was all about what a great young squad it was, and now in 2 years' time, if the squad are together, then it'll be absolutely amazing. 2 years later, it's a year too early. Not even at all. He completely messed up the run-up to that championship, where he had 4 or 5 players who were in the first 11 to 14 in his squad who only had like 5 caps. He didn't earn them enough experience. So I know we're digressing a little bit, but I think it's important ahead of an international week where we're slagging off Southgate now for giving caps away. And to some degree he has done. It's not going to work, but in the end, he might get to a place where he has to pick Harry Winks, for example, or God forbid, Jake Livermore. But at least he's got them their caps now. So their first game isn't, a World Cup group game against Brazil or whoever, and they're overawed by the occasion.
Just quickly as well, before we move on, because we are going to run over. We always do anyway, but whatever. There was one particular journalist in that press conference, and I believe, I'm not totally sure, but I believe he worked for one of the big national newspapers. And he took the first opportunity to have a go at Hodgson about Kane taking corners during the Euros. And Hodgson's response was actually really good. And I want to say this because I was really impressed by this. Roy Hodgson, off the top of his head, pulled out a statistic. Now, I haven't checked it to make sure that it's genuine, but it sounded about right from what I could think of. He said if you looked at Harry Kane's stats in that season, he hadn't scored a single goal from a corner. Yet he was one of the technically better players, and he felt that he could offer more delivering the ball, seen as the fact he hadn't scored from any corners. So Harry Kane taking corners, and I quote Roy Hodgson, did not make the blindest bit of difference to our results in the European Championships.
Okay. 15,
it's hard to
15,
argue,
16. Yeah, I don't recall him scoring.
That's your homework, guys. I want you to find the Harry Kane goal.
My homework is that you're 90% Arsenal, 10% Palace.
He scored a header. He scored a header from a corner away against Swansea in 2015.
Harry, did you have to do this?
I think that was the back end of last season.
We'll check that out. We'll part that for now.
Dan, this is for a later time.
Oh, I thought this was a quiz.
No, it's not the quiz. It's too early for that. Slaven Bilic was finally given his marching orders by West Ham United. And I guess, given the way his side have performed, nobody could have any complaints or be surprised. But you'd struggle to find a West Ham fan who's happy with the appointment of David Moyes. Now, we put out a Twitter poll the day David Moyes was appointed and the day Bilic was fired. 85% were against the appointment and just 15% were for it. Is he the right man? Is this an opportunity for him to relaunch his managerial career? Larry, starting with you.
I think everyone... I don't know. I just haven't heard anyone say that this is the right appointment. Like, I don't know why we're even discussing this. I've seen so many polls. R1 had the most in favour of him, believe it or not. I've seen, other pods and other channels, and they've all had less than 15, 10%. I think I start to think it was his time at Everton overrated. Do you know what I mean? Like, is this someone who everyone goes, oh, he took them to the Champions League? Actually, he lost the qualifier. Oh, yeah, but, he went to Spain and he beat Barcelona. Yeah, Barcelona had like 6 of their best players missing, and including Messi, Neymar, etc. So, no, he's definitely not the right appointment. Like I said earlier, when you go into the West Ham and the Everton comparison, I don't even know if he's the man who should be given a budget, because I read earlier that he was going to be given, 4 players he can buy in January, and they could have surely done better than him. He wasn't their first choice, was he, boys? I mean, we're talking they must have gone and tried to get everyone else, and he was 5th choice or something. No? Because his opening press conference was, oh, man. I mean, if you say Roy Hodgson was good...
Spanish this time.
Yeah. I mean, dear. I mean, just to top it off, and my final point, and I know I've got a thing against him, but if your opening move is to bring in Stuart Pearce as your number 10, that's all I've got to say.
You make a good point.
That is literally everything wrong with England. In a nutshell, is the fact that David Moyes is coming in and he's going to bring Stuart Pearce as his number 2, bought on the coaching staff.
Just quickly, before we go to DeLuca on this one. Yep. David Moyes' finishes during his time at Everton: 7th, 17th, 4th, 11th, 6th, 5th, 8th, 7th. There's a bit of inconsistency there, but overall it was a pretty good tenure.
But Harry, you didn't have a top 6 then. You just had like Man United, Arsenal. He's a bit different.
What I'm trying to say is he did have poor seasons. He did have really good seasons, and overall, I think he was pretty consistent over the sort of 10 years he was there.
He did all right. Yeah, he did all right. I think it's a good opportunity for David Moyes. Okay, let's forget about West Ham for a minute. It's difficult going there. If you know how hard it is to change your opinion of a manager, something miraculous has to happen. So I don't know what is going to be expected of him, to be honest. This season, it will be keep him up and start playing some good football. Next season, they're going to want ridiculous things again because, unfortunately, the season where West Ham finished 5th or 6th in the end, it put them in this place where they thought they were going to do all sorts of stuff. They were trying to sign Lacazette, Batshuayi. They turned up with Simone Zaza. He was banging him in for Valencia, by the way, but that's another story. Moyes, I don't think it's the best appointment because the fans don't want him. I think it's a good opportunity for Moyes if he gets accepted, but he's not going to. But it's a route back into the Premier League, and they're going to be hard to come by. I think it's an opportunity for him to earn the benefit of the doubt. There's excuses why he underachieved at Manchester United. Yeah. There are some excuses potentially as to why he underachieved at Sunderland, even though I think a lot of that was his own doing. But benefit of the doubt, this is his opportunity to do a decent job at West Ham. A couple of mid-table finishes in a row would fit that bill for me. And then he'd be better off doing that and getting out as quickly as he can and moving into a different job.
Yeah, and keep hold of Lanzini. That's should be his number one.
He's a good player
because you're going to laugh, but I'm telling you, one of your sides could. I honestly think he could be quality. He could be a top 6 player, as in top 6 Premier League side.
Okay, we turn our attention now to La Liga in Spain, and I'd like us to talk briefly about Real Madrid and Zinedine Zidane. They find themselves 8 points behind Barcelona, and of course it's early days, but in a league where, how can I put this, there aren't as many shock results, there are less sides capable of beating the top 3 or 4. Just how significant a gap is that for Zizou's men to try and close Alavi?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this, didn't we, between us like a few weeks ago now. It gets to a point in La Liga where it's like, 10 games to go and whoever loses, they're not going to win the league, Their next game, they've got Atletico Madrid away. Both teams 8 points behind Barcelona. You'd think Zidane's got time with, 7 trophies or whatever it is in 19 months. So he's got to be given time. Tactically, he's... and DeLuca, you saw this with against Spurs. He's facing teams that are playing 3 centre backs and 2 wing backs, and it's like you can't handle it. Casemiro's in a holding midfielder that ends up sort of darting forward, but actually you want Modric and Kroos to drop deep to receive it. It just doesn't work for me. A player like Modric needs to be doing his damage. Best centre midfielder in the world for me, further up the pitch. Personnel wise, Benzema, he's scored 1 goal. Ronaldo scored 1 goal in the league. Morata got 20 goals off the bench last season, and he's been sold about being replaced. Your old boy Gareth Bale is injured. Carvajal seems to be a huge miss. The right back's recovering from a heart virus or something. I mentioned Morata. Let's not forget James Rodriguez. He's on. He's at Bayern on loan. Pepe, free transfer. They're all allowed to go now. Mayoral, Ceballos, they're talented players, but
Ronaldo made reference to this, didn't he?
Well, exactly, he did, and
after the Spurs defeat.
Yeah, he did. He did, and he said that they're talented, but you can't rely on them. Asensio, well, we all scored the goal. He hasn't played enough for me. I mean, I think Spurs Dan, he played substitute both games. He started sub both games. Now he's got to play more. Plays with pace, opens up the space for Isco. So that's what I would highlight as Madrid's problems. I think you've got to give Zidane time. I think my prediction of Barca winning the league is gonna come true. So El Avi for the double or the treble with Juventus, which we'll discuss later. But Harry, 8 points is huge. 8 points is like 20 in the Premier League, and that's no exaggeration.
Okay. Elsewhere in Europe, former Italy midfielder Andrea Pirlo has announced his retirement from the game, having played his final game for MLS side New York City. He won 116 caps for the Azzurri, was an integral part of their 2006 World Cup win in Germany, and has 6 Serie A titles and 2 Champions League winners' medals to show for an outstanding career. Gents, De Luca, you're the Italian. We'll start with you first. Just how good was Andrea Pirlo? And does he fit into the same bracket as the Xavis and Iniestas of the world?
I had to take the day off work for a start. Just I had to take the day off work. I was that sad. Just sat at home watching clips, eating ice cream. Yeah, does he fit into the Xavis and Iniestas? I don't see why not. Like, I really don't see why not. He's just an absolutely exceptional footballer, and he was a footballer that it took him a lot longer to get the credit he deserved in this country. For whatever reason, Serie A is not one of the leagues at the forefront of this country's viewing figures, and so a lot of players will not become the household names as quickly. And it took that performance in Euro 2012 against England, which oddly finished 0-0. But that was one of the best individual performances I've seen from a midfielder. He was absolutely brilliant. I don't have words to describe him any more than just effortless. He never looked like he was trying. He probably played at the top level 1 or 2 years too long, but that's because he was good enough and had the brain to do it. It's a shame we
free transfer, amazing.
It's a shame. Yeah, that was amazing. Absolutely ridiculous. I've not seen many better free kick takers in the history of football. The accuracy and the range of his passing. Just a very, very intelligent, effortlessly good footballer. And it's a shame we never got to see, or everyone. I obviously saw an awful lot of him, but it's a shame that not everyone got to see as much of him as they might have.
Okay. Just while we were on Pirlo, I came across an interesting quote from Gennaro Gattuso.
Nutella, yeah.
Absolute nutter.
Nutella, I mean.
Oh, you see Pirlo, the face of an angel, but honestly, he's a son of a bitch. One day I was eating, I left my phone on the table, and he sent a text to Milan's vice president offering him my sister.
No,
that's incredible.
I thought you were going to say the Nutella one. Didn't he say there was a quote that someone asked him to compare himself with Gattuso with Pirlo, and Gattuso goes, quite honestly, well, Dan's already sworn, so okay, let's not confuse Nutella with shit. That was what I thought you were going to say, though.
No, it wasn't.
He shouldn't really be a good player, should he, Pirlo? I mean, he's not very quick. He's not even that strong. Doesn't do anything. You know, like he takes free kick and he could. Do you know what I mean? Like he's not particularly athletic.
He doesn't glide. He doesn't glide past players like Iniesta.
No.
Talking about comparison.
No. He doesn't run with the ball. Perhaps like Modric has the ability to, or for all intents and purposes in today's modern game, he should not be a good footballer. And the fact that he is, it just speaks volumes.
You read his autobiography. I think, therefore I play. The title sums him up for a start. But he says in that how he had a contract and an agreement to join Real Madrid, and then he turned it down. He had an agreement to join Barcelona after the 2006 World Cup. He turned that down. Now, whether you believe it or not is one thing. I actually think there's a very, very good reason why he turned those down, because he knew the best league for him to bring out his skills, his attributes, and for him to have an elongated career and not have to run past players or not have to get kicked up in the air by Charlie Adam at the Britannia on a windy Saturday afternoon. So I think he found a place where he was comfortable. The Serie A is a league that allows you to play football in the truest form. Get the ball, pass it, move off the ball and pass it again, rather than have to rely on these other physical attributes. He didn't have those things, but in the league he was in, he didn't need to. Brilliant footballer. the Italian midfield has had a hole for a couple of years. And I don't know. You don't know where finding players like that is obviously very, very difficult.
You can also buy Pirlo beard oil. DeLuca, obviously that doesn't apply to you, but Harry,
it'd be a struggle. I put it in my hair. I put it in my hair.
Elsewhere in Europe's most entertaining league this weekend, yes, I'm talking about Serie A. League leaders Napoli dropped points at Chievo, where they were held to a 0-0 draw. Inter also stumbled as they were held at home by Torino. That was the first time they failed to win at the San Siro this season. It was 1-1. Juve, in true Juventus fashion, managed to drag themselves over the line and move back into second place. It has to be said, it wasn't easy. And basement boys Benevento actually led at half-time. Higuain and Cuadrado spared the old ladies blushes in the second half. Now, I did say on a previous show you'd be foolish to write Juve off. And having closed the gap to just 1 point, I hope I'm wrong because I really want to see Napoli win it. But it's difficult to see past Juve securing a 7th league title in a row. DeLuca, your thoughts on the Serie A title race?
Well, I'm wearing my 2013 Napoli shirt tonight. So to give you a flash of the badge there. Oh,
hey.
That's not a badge. There it is. Because Napoli are my team. They're my Italian team. I tipped them before the season. And Benevento are the club nearest to my nan's house. So it's the equivalent of supporting, like, I don't know, Tottenham and then Stevenage get promoted to Serie A. Obviously, you want them to do well. They've got 0 points. I think I don't know if I want Napoli to do it. I think they're going to do it. I think Napoli are going to do it this time. And the reason I think that is because Juve are quietening down a little bit. They've lost Bonucci, Zaha, their back three. So I don't think they're going to be as consistently solid. And Napoli, they've had the core of their team there for so long now that I think this is the year it's going to click for them. And I know people say it's about Tottenham a lot, and they're very similar to Napoli in a way, like always on the outskirts or whatever. But I genuinely think in Napoli's case this time, this is their best chance. I don't think there'll be another chance as good as this. It doesn't mean they'll disappear off the face of the earth. But I just think Napoli are going to do it. Dries Martins is in absolutely brilliant form, one of the most underrated players in Europe. Marek Hamzic has been brilliant for 10 years, doesn't really get the credit he deserves. He's fantastic. Defensively, they're not great. Insigne had a quiet spell. Benitez nearly ruined him. He had a bad injury as well. Always been a good player. I've always spoken him up. He's in absolutely brilliant form. And I just think it's coming together for them. They're going to get knocked out of the Champions League, which in this case is a bonus. When I call the Champions League pointless, it's not because I don't like it. It's because it sometimes detracts away from bigger things. I think being out of that might help them a great deal. And I just think they're going to pull it off this time. I really do.
But DeLuca, the players you mentioned, like Insigne, Hamsik, they come up through the youth system. Obviously, Mertens cost, I don't know, you can correct me, Harry, but like 10 million. Who was the guy that got from Bordeaux, the defender? Is it Unas? He was 10 million. So don't you think it's quite nice to see a team win it that aren't spending hundreds and hundreds of
absolutely
of millions? And by the way, they're still second favourites if you want to know the odds. So Juventus, who are still my pick, are 11 to 10, and Napoli are 23 to 17. So close, but they've still got Juventus and obviously Roma like 20 to 1 after that.
I think it's obviously a coincidence that both teams I support are very, very similar in the way they are. But I would like Napoli to win it. One, because I support them, but two, because of the things you mentioned. But you look at it, they've had their best player taken away from them. I mean, Higuain to a rival who is earning Juventus points that are currently keeping them down. They've had Cavani, they had Lavezzi. They've had big players over the last 7-8 years that have come and been plucked away, and they're still managing to improve every year despite that. Similar to Tottenham on a lesser level, similar to like Southampton who lose everything and they still somehow come back fighting. So it'd be nice for the whole of football if, I won't say Tottenham, Harry, because that's
that
too far.
Nice too, but considering the country, to be honest,
as a consolation prize, like if someone like Napoli could do it, it'd be similar to I imagine how the rest of Europe reacted when Leicester won the Premier League. I just like to see a team like Napoli who've been there and thereabouts for years, doing things the right way for once. Getting a reward, a big reward. It'd be great.
Harry, stick your neck on Milan. Who's going to win it? They got Milan next, haven't they? AC Milan.
For me, it's Juve.
Same.
I just think they got more strength in depth, and like at the weekend they brought in, they left Buffon out, they brought Szczesny in, they brought Douglas Costa in. They've got that caliber of squad player, which could be vital in the long run. Guys, I'm going to refer to a couple of our listener questions now. The first one is from Rob Palmer. What's the main weakness of each of the top 6? Now, what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to say the name of the team, and you're going to give me one-word answers on what is their weakness, and we're going to go around, okay? So, Manchester City, what's their main weakness, DeLuca?
Defence.
Alavi.
Central defence, i.e. who plays with Stones when Company is injured, etc.
Okay, that's the longest one-word answer I've ever heard. But it's fine.
It like 4 or 5 words.
Manchester United, DeLuca.
Inconsistent goals. No goals from not enough goals from midfield.
Okay, Alavi.
Yeah, converting chances, Lukaku injured, etc.
Tottenham, DeLuca.
There just aren't any. There aren't any.
No, I've got one.
It's no genuine box to box midfielder powerhouse. I don't think.
Okay, Alavi.
I was going to say sort of midfield creativity when you've got Sissoko, Wanyama, and say Dembele all having to play together. That would be mine.
Okay, Chelsea.
That's obvious. Kante injured.
Just the poisonous atmosphere that surfaces at that football club every 6 months.
Okay, Liverpool.
You're joking, right?
One word.
Write a list on this one.
Individual errors. No other Premier League side has conceded more individual errors since Klopp has taken over than West Ham. That is one hell of a stat.
Okay, DeLuca.
Simon Mignolet. Let's start with a goalkeeper. Let's start there and work our way forward. Simon Mignolet.
Question for Rob.
Last but by no means least, the mighty Arsenal. It's another one we need to get the note
conceded set pieces. I don't know. You probably know more. Set piece conceding, maybe.
DeLuca.
No. What did he say? No cojones. No cojones.
Moaning about Troy Deeney wing headers, something like that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say tactical naivety.
Yeah,
that's my one.
Would you be worried about the club, Harry, in terms of like is there still a poisonous atmosphere, or is that just being?
Oh, there is, but you know what? There is a poisonous atmosphere, but then you see things like the AGM that took place the other week, and you realise just why. You understand why, and you know what? Arsenal fans have got a right to be moaning. I know people think we moan more than most, but we do it with good reason most of the time. It's time for a bit of fun now. We've come towards the end of the show. Alavi claimed victory in the quiz last time out, and you know me, I'm not one to deny a friend his time in the spotlight. Alavi, it's over to you for this week's teaser. Fire away.
No worries. I got this one from Dan James here at the Liverpool article, who writes Liverpool articles for us. So it's Dan _James. He asked me to plug his Twitter. And it's a good question. Okay. One player has scored in 6 club competitions in one season. So 3 domestic competitions, the Europe Champions League, the UEFA Super Cup, and the FIFA Club World Cup.
Right, so just free. So, are we talking about? Is it England? 3 domestic English clubs.
I'll tell you what. It's in Europe. It's in Europe. It's not in England. It's in one of the other major leagues. Okay, so he's scored in 6 club competitions. Okay, so you've got the 3 domestic competitions. So your league and obviously the 2 cups and wherever they are.
There's got to be a country that has 2 domestic cups because a lot of them don't.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's got to be a country who's won the Champions League, hasn't it? Otherwise, they wouldn't be playing in the World Cup.
Exactly.
You've set up.
I have 2 other backup questions in case you need them.
I'll be honest. I don't think I'm going to find the answer to this one.
It's Steven Gerrard.
No, but he was an answer to another one. that I was thinking of.
So you've ruined that one now as well.
No, not one I've got written down.
Ask that question.
All right, I'll ask the other question. The answer to this one is Pedro in the 09-10 season. All right, you'll like this one.
But what's the two domestic competitions in Spain? I thought there's only the Copa del Rey and the League.
And the Spanish Super Cup.
Yeah, they've got the Super Cup, haven't they?
Cool.
Okay, all right, an easier one. There's a player. He's won the Champions League, the UEFA Cup.
You don't have to say it's easier and make us look stupid.
Well, but you'll see. When you know the answer, you'll know why. One player, he's won the Champions League, the UEFA Cup, the Premier League, the FA Cup, and he's been relegated from the Premier League. He's won the Champions League, the UEFA Cup, the Premier League, the FA Cup, and he's been relegated. And one of your two teams is involved massively. Obviously not the Champions League. He's won the Champions League, the UEFA Cup. This is where your teams are involved. One of your teams, the Premier League and the FA Cup. So that rules one of you out already, doesn't it?
Yeah, all right, Lavi.
All right.
I know I'm not doing well at the quiz, but I could have worked that out.
He won the
he won the Premier League and the FA Cup with Arsenal. He's also won the Champions League, the UEFA Cup, and he's been relegated from the Premier League. No cheating.
He's been relegated.
Come on. I honestly knew this one straight away, just because I think the relegated gives it away.
You'd like to think so, wouldn't you? But
yeah.
Who else has won it with Arsenal?
Yeah,
and gone to a club that's got relegated. So think of the clubs who've been relegated in the last few years.
Just tell us.
All right. The club who have been relegated is Portsmouth.
Yeah, I knew it was Portsmouth. It's Nwanko Kanu.
Sol Campbell?
Sol bloody Campbell. No, Kanu. When did he win the Champions League?
Oh yeah, I forgot.
I just got to Portsmouth before you gave the game away.
Yeah.
He won the
that was a good one.
He won the Champions League of Ajax in 1995, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know who the UEFA Cup was with. Inter?
I think he won the UEFA Cup with Inter Milan in 1999, 1998.
To be honest, I forgot you said Champions League because I was focusing too much on the Premier League, and I tried to think who's gone to a relegation.
Yeah.
I went.
I mean, it fits that you two would both forget the Champions League, so I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Yeah, whatever. Right, guys, that brings us to the end of another Sofa Sports News football show brought to you by the FNX Network. You can hit us up on social media. You can follow us on Twitter at SofaSportsNews_. Facebook group, the Football Fan Network, sofasportsnews.com. We've also got a Facebook page. I'd like to say a huge thank you to our partners for their continued support. And whether you are watching live on YouTube or listening on iTunes, hit that subscribe button. This show will be aired on Greek Beat Radio this coming Saturday morning. And if you're interested, last week we spoke to former Liverpool goalkeeper and treble winner Sander Westerveld, and that is available on iTunes or wherever else you get your podcasts from. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to leave us a comment. And thanks for listening. Guys, cheers.
No worries. See you soon.
Cheers.